Hello 8th class students. Now we are going to start the chapter coal and petroleum. It is very important chapter because there is a continuation of coal and petroleum. Like it will be again continuing in your chapter 8. So next chapter is also related, and even coal and petroleum is very important. These two chapters are related only. Now I'm going to present you few videos, a combination of clips which will help you analyze what exactly is the coal and petroleum. Then we'll be starting with the explanation part, and then again last minute, then again in the next week, you'll get my explanation, which will be of the textbook activities. Then we'll be going for the workbook explanation of the answers and writing part. So watch these videos very carefully.
Hello friends, this video on coal and petroleum part 4 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now let us discuss about these fossil fuels in more detail. So we will start with coal. So coal, I am sure all of you would have seen coal, you would have used coal. So coal, as far as look is concerned, they are hard, black, rock-like, however lighter. So they look like rocks, but they are not as heavy as rocks. Carbon is what makes coal such a valuable resource of energy. So the carbon content in coal is very high. Now, and that is why when we burn coal, a lot of energy is produced because we are actually burning carbon. So a lot of carbon dioxide gets released. When we burn coal, what is happening? It burns in presence of air, in presence of oxygen. So carbon combines with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. Now, the most interesting part, how coal was formed. Now, we already got an idea about the formation of fossil fuels. So, the similar story with coal as well. So, it was formed from trees and plants. Now, several years ago, there were a lot of areas which were covered with dense forests. Now, due to several catastrophic reasons, and one such reason like floods, what happened was all these dense forests, they were all like devastated and they all went under water. Because when flood happens, so it's like you have too much of water everywhere. So all these forests were like spoiled, and all the trees, plants, herbs, shrubs, everything, they went under the soil, they went under the water. So during floods, they all got buried. Now what happens? Now when they got buried, so see, before flood, this is how it was. Too many plants, too many forests everywhere. Now after floods, all the plants, they died. They were all uprooted and they went under the soil. So you see, this is all water now. So the dead plants are now covered with water. So water came on top of the dead plants. Now, over a period of time, what happened was more and more soil got deposited over them. So here you see, initially there was like little bit of soil. Now gradually it was not only that soil, there were big rocks, there were smaller rocks, there were stones and more soil. And as the content of the soil, rocks and everything increased here, what was happening? These dead plants were basically getting compressed. So they were getting squeezed. Now when they were getting squeezed, all the water which was present in the dead plants, they started getting released. Now at the same time, these dead plants were also going deeper inside. So the temperature was also increasing, because if you remember in our previous lesson, we spoke about the structure of the earth. We said that we have a core. So earth looks like a sphere. At the center you have the core, then you have the mantle, and then outside you have the crust. And the temperature is maximum in the interior. So core has the highest temperature, and as you come out to the crust and then to the earth's surface, the temperature start decreasing. Now in this case, what is happening is, now as the dead plants are going deeper, they are basically going towards the center of the earth. So they are actually going towards a region where the temperature is also increasing. So many things are happening simultaneously. These dead plants, they are getting squeezed due to more and more soil, more and more rocks getting deposited over it. Therefore they are losing out all the water present within them. So they are becoming dry. At the same time, they are going deeper because more and more materials are getting deposited over it. Now, as they are going deeper, they are exposed to high temperature and high pressure. So, as a result of this high temperature, high pressure, losing all the water, so this three things together result in the conversion of the dead plant remains into coal. However, this entire process of conversion doesn't happen overnight. It takes millions of years to take place, and that is why the process of coal formation is very, very slow. Now, do you think that we will be able to produce coal artificially? Now, we know that, okay, this is the process by which coal is formed. Now, can we create an artificial atmosphere where coal can be formed? That is not really feasible because we do not have so much of time, because the process is so gradual that even if we create an atmosphere like this inside a laboratory, we cannot afford to spend millions of years, right? Because this process is extremely gradual, and that is why coal is a very precious resource, because it is exhaustible. At the same time, we cannot create or we cannot make coal artificially. So this is how coal was formed. And this entire process of coal formation is called carbonization. Why is it called carbonization? Because it derived the name from carbon. So carbon content in coal is very high. So it is called carbonization. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on coal and petroleum part 3 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So when we talk about the exhaustible resources, the first resource that strikes our mind are the fossil fuels. So what are fossil fuels? These are fuels which are formed by natural processes like decomposition of dead plants and animals. So anything which is formed from dead plants and animals, they are called fossils. And since they act as fuels, they are called fossil fuels. So examples of fossil fuel are coal, petroleum, natural gas. So these are all examples of fossil fuel, because all of them are formed from dead animals or plants. So if you talk about coal, it is formed from dead plants. Talk about petroleum, it is also formed from dead animals which were once living in the sea. So anything which is formed from dead living organisms, they are called fossil fuels. So in this lesson, we will talk about how coal was formed, how petroleum was formed, and what are the components present inside coal or petroleum. So we will talk in detail about them. Now, what is the importance of fossil fuels? Why are they so important? Firstly, because they are important sources of energy. Now, if you talk about any fossil fuel, you talk about coal, you burn coal, you get a lot of energy, you get a lot of heat energy, you get a lot of light energy, and this energy is so much that it is actually used to produce electricity. You talk about petrol or diesel, they also act as good sources of energy. Domestic purposes, for example, for cooking, we make use of the cylinders which contain LPG. So the LPG is nothing but it is a product obtained from petroleum. Even natural gas, which is available through the gas pipelines. So that is also used for domestic cooking purposes. In fact, coal is also used in a lot of rural areas. Thermal power plant, where the heat energy from these fossil fuels are used to generate electricity. So that is the purpose of setting up a thermal power plant. Now the question is, how were these fossil fuels formed? Because I said they were formed from dead plants and animals, but how? So these fossil fuels were formed during the Carboniferous period, which was a long time ago, around 350 million years ago. So can you just imagine how past we are talking about? So millions and millions of years ago, during the Carboniferous period. Why was that called Carboniferous period? Because of the role of carbon. So carbon was present in everything. So these fossil fuels were formed. What happened during that time was a lot of trees, plants, organisms, they started dying. So when they died, they went to the bottom of the oceans. Now during those period, a huge portion of the earth was covered by water. Now most of these dead plants or animal remains, they went to the bottom of the ocean. Over a period of time, they formed a layer of spongy material called peat, because as they went to the bottom, a lot of other things like sand, mud, clay, stones, rocks, they started getting deposited over the dead remains. So after again a couple of years, what happened was those dead trees or plants remains, they formed a layer called peat. And this peat gradually, as it got covered with more and more rocks, stones, sand and clay, it got squeezed. It is something like you leave, say you leave something on a table, you leave a book on the table, and on top of the book you keep a lot of stuffs. Now as you keep increasing those stuffs, the book tend to get squeezed. So the same thing happened here. So the peat got squeezed because a lot of other stuffs were actually coming upon it. So gradually, because when it got squeezed, it started releasing water, like how it happens with a sponge. So if you squeeze the sponge, the water goes out. So here also the same thing happened. The water started getting released. And that is how, under the influence of high temperature, high pressure, so these dead remains of plants and animals formed coal, petroleum and natural gas. Coal was primarily formed from the remains of dead plants, and petroleum was formed from dead remains of animals. So, but this is how it happened. And as you can see, this transformation of dead plants or animals into coal or petroleum did not happen overnight. So it took millions of years for this transformation to take place. So that's why we always say that these are exhaustible resources, because the formation has actually taken these many years. So if we exhaust them so soon, then it will become difficult to form them again. However, even though the fossil fuels are a great source of energy, but there are certain disadvantages associated with them. One is air pollution. Burning of fossil fuels cause a lot of pollution. In fact, it releases a lot of harmful gases like carbon monoxide. Not only pollution, it also results in a lot of harmful substances which are produced during burning of fossil fuels. They remain in the atmosphere and they combine with the normal rain and results in acid rain. So these acid rain contains several acidic oxides. Now this acid rain contains a lot of acidic oxides like carbon oxides, nitrogen and sulfur dioxides, and these oxides, they actually have a lot of adverse effects, not only on the living organisms, but on a lot of other things like monuments. So one such classic example of adverse effect of acid rain is the Taj Mahal. So if you look at the shine of the Taj Mahal, it has reduced a lot over the past couple of years, and that has happened due to acid rain. Greenhouse effect. So what happens in a greenhouse effect? So there also, because the amount of the gases which are greenhouse gases, when the amount of those gases like methane and carbon dioxide, so they are basically the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and methane. Now when these gases, they increase a lot in the atmosphere, what happens is they tend to absorb a lot of heat, and therefore overall there is global warming. So greenhouse effect over a period of time results in global warming, that is the overall temperature of the earth increases. Now we will learn about greenhouse effect in other topics, so here I will not get into the detail of this. But when we burn fossil fuels, more and more carbon dioxide is added up to the atmosphere. So we are basically increasing the amount of greenhouse gases. So that's how we are also contributing to the greenhouse effect. Now these are some of the very major disadvantages associated with the use of fossil fuels, and therefore we should be very much conscious about how we use fossil fuels. Now there are quite a reasons attached to it. First of all, these are exhaustible resources. I mean, if we use them all at once, nothing will be left for the immediate future generations, because fossil fuels cannot be formed over a period of 100 or 200 years. They will again need some millions of years. So that means the future generations will not have any more fossil fuels. So that is one reason. Second thing is, a lot of pollution also happens due to the use of fossil fuels. So that way is also to protect our environment, to keep our environment clean, we should try to use fossil fuels judiciously. So based on whatever we have discussed so far about fossil fuels, what do we conclude? We conclude that resources like coal and petroleum should be used judiciously so that they are left for our future generation. It is very similar to the example of the jar of chocolates. So if the present generation, that is those students who are coming early, if they eat all the chocolates, then what will happen? Nothing will be left for the students who will come a little later. So similarly, the present generation, if they use all the coal and petroleum, nothing will be left for the next generation. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on coal and petroleum part 6 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So that's how the coal is extracted from the coal mines. Now, once the coal is extracted from coal mines, so do you think that the coal which we get underneath, that is directly used for the various purposes which we have talked about? Like where do we use coal? We use coal maybe in the villages. You would have seen that it is used for cooking purposes in the small stoves and all. So that is one place where you would have seen the use of coal. It is also used to generate electricity. So the energy received from coal is transformed into electric energy in the thermal power stations. But do you think the coal which we get as soon as we dig it, so the result of the coal which is obtained after coal mining, is that ready for all these uses? Well, not really. The coal needs to be processed, and that is why you have the coal processing stations. So what happens there? So in the picture you can actually see how a coal processing station would look like. So after processing, the coal needs to be washed because there will be a lot of dirt, lot of undesirable particles present over it. So it needs to be washed clearly, and it should also be crushed because sometimes each piece of coal is like huge. So transporting such huge and heavy pieces of coal is really difficult. So in order to make it portable, it is crushed down into smaller pieces. They are washed properly. Now, the more amount of waste material that can be removed from coal, the lower is its ash content. So the lesser the undesirable particle in the coal, better it is, and lower is its transportation cost and better is its market value. So therefore all this processing of coal is done before it can be actually utilized for various purposes. So that's the next thing that happens. So first we saw where is coal present. How is coal formed? It is formed over millions of years, and it is formed deep inside the earth. So how do we dig it out? By coal mining. So once we dig it out, then what do? Coal processing. Now once that is also done, now all these things are done using automated machines, as you can see in the picture. So it is not an easy task to crush these big huge pieces of coal. So obviously you need machines to do this for you. So that's how coal processing happens. So now when we talk about the various uses of coal, we see that coal is most popular as a fuel. It is most popular as a source of energy, something which can be burned to produce a lot of energy. So why is coal so popular as a fuel? Firstly, because it is formed naturally. We do not create it. So every time it is formed, we know it is going to be the same thing. So it is formed naturally. It has less mining costs. When you talk about other fuels, you see comparatively that the mining costs involved with coal is quite less. In fact, we discussed about some 3 techniques, right? The underground mining, surface mining, and mountain top mining. So out of this also we saw that in most of the cases, most commonly used technique is the surface mining, and that involves very less cost. So the cost, it is more economical also. huge energy generation. So coal can actually produce a lot of energy. So, and I hope you can understand that because of that only, the energy which is produced out of coal, that is used to generate electricity, and for that purpose we have set up so many thermal power plants which are running only with their dependency on coal. So they have the ability to generate huge amount of energy. So mostly the only thing that can help you to understand how much that energy is the generation of electricity, because you can see the thermal power plants, right? They are able to produce so much of electricity, and what is their source? Their source of energy is nothing but coal. So these are some of the properties of coal which makes it very popular as a fuel. So there we talk about the thermal power plant. So in these plants, they convert the heat energy into electrical energy. And from where do they get this heat energy? By burning coal. So when they burn coal, a lot of heat energy is produced, and this heat energy is then converted into electrical energy. So heat energy is generated by burning huge amount of fossil fuels. Many thermal power plants are located near coal or oil fields. That's because then they get their raw material nearby. So as I said, coal field areas. Now in every country you have some specific coal field areas where there are a lot of coal mines present inside. So if you establish a thermal power plant near to that area, then it helps because coal is present in the nearby location. So you can actually utilize that coal to produce heat energy, and then the heat energy can be converted into electrical energy. So for that convenience, the thermal power plants are always set up near coal fields or oil fields, because oil again is, when I say oil, I am talking about petroleum. So that is also a fossil fuel, that is also a very rich source of energy. Now, not only a source of energy, a lot of other useful products are also obtained from coal. So let us see what are the useful products that can be obtained from coal. One is coke, coal tar, coal gas, liquid ammonia. So these are some of the very useful products. Now we will talk about the uses of each of these, that why I am saying that they are useful products. So we will talk about their uses. We will also talk about how exactly they are produced from coal. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on Coal and Petroleum Part 5 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now, since coal is formed deep inside the earth, it is deep under the ground, therefore it needs to be mined, or it needs to be taken out from below the ground using different techniques and methods. So now, these techniques and methods, when we talk about them, then we talk about coal mines. And what are coal mines? These are nothing but excavation or digging up in the earth to obtain coal. So basically there are certain areas where there are more deposits of coal. Why there are more deposits? Because maybe once upon a time, millions of years ago, there were a lot of forests out there which got buried under the soil due to floods. So in those regions we have more deposits of coal, and that is why you do not have coal mines located anywhere and everywhere. For example, in India, a state where coal mines are a state which is famous or popular for coal mines is Jharkhand. So there you have a lot of coal mines, and this is how a coal mine looks. So here in the picture also you can see a coal mine. So basically, since we saw that coal is formed deep inside the earth, so we have to actually dig as long as we do not reach there where coal is present, and that's how we have to obtain the coal from there. So coal mining, being formed deep under the earth, it is mined using different methods. So let us look at some of the methods by which coal is mined. So one is underground mining, one is surface mining, and the third one is mountain top mining. So what are each of these? So now let us spend some time quickly to understand how each of these different methods work. So we will start with underground mining. Now the name gives us a little bit of hint, like since the coal deposits will be underground, so we are going to mine it somehow from there. So let's see what happens. So here the miners, they dig tunnels down into the earth to find coal seams. So basically you see here you can see a person sitting inside a tunnel. Now since the coal is deep under the ground, so what you do is you construct a tunnel, and the tunnel goes deep into the earth, and you dig it until and unless you find that coal deposits. Now as I said before also, that coal deposits are not found everywhere. There are specific locations where probability of finding coal mines are more. So that is where these kind of tunnels are being dug. Now since these tunnels are dug underground, it is known as underground mining. So automated equipment dig rooms into seams. So basically there are equipments which can do things automatically rather than manual labor involved, and those equipments can actually create rooms inside the coal seams as well, and that's how you actually do the entire process of mining. So this entire process of mining takes place underground through these tunnels. Now, as the digging continues, a conveyor system carries the coal back to the surface. So, have you ever seen a conveyor belt which is present on the airport? Now, when you go to collect your baggage, after you get down from a flight, you would have seen the conveyor belt. So it looks somewhat like this. So it keeps rotating like this, and your bags and suitcases, they are placed here. So as it rotates, it reaches near you and you pick your suitcase up. So that's how the conveyor belt works. So a similar type of system is present here also. So what happens is the real miners who are actually bringing down the coal, where are they present? They are present underground, right inside the tunnels. Now as this digging happens, we also need to carry the coal from underground and bring it to the surface, and there is huge amount of coal, right? So what is done is, as the digging happens, the amount of coal which is being collected, that is passed to the surface through a conveyor system like this. So a similar type of system, the one which you see in the airport, a very similar type of system actually helps to carry the coal from underground to the surface. So that's how the process of underground mining happens. However, there are certain disadvantages associated with underground mining. One is mine gases can suffocate miners, because now if you look at the miners, the person who are actually involved in mining the coal, they are present underground and they are present inside those tunnels. So those tunnels are nothing but they are kind of rooms inside the coal mines. Now just imagine, it is going to be quite suffocating because you cannot move freely. It is just one room which is underground, and that too which is surrounded by coal everywhere. So it can be suffocating. And also, what is coal? Coal has high carbon content. So the kind of gases which will get emitted inside a coal mine, that they are also not very healthy. So suffocation might become a common thing for the miners. Mines collapse. Now sometimes it also happens that the mines collapse because there is so much of heat, there is so much of energy in coal, right? So it is also possible that it collapse or it catches fire. So that ways it can again be risky to the miners. Coal dust is harmful to health. Now, the dust which is produced due to presence of lot of coal. In fact, if you go to these kind of areas, like if you visit places in Jharkhand where coal mines are present, so there you can actually feel the presence of these kind of coal dust. So whenever you go out somewhere near the coal mine area, you can actually feel that blackish dust everywhere. And these dust can cause different diseases. It can cause asthma, it can cause breathing problems, so it can even cause allergies and cold. So that way also it is harmful to the health of miners, because in this mining the miner is always exposed to a closed area full of coal dust. The next type of coal mining is surface mining. So here we do not really go into underground, but we try to mine it being on the surface. So let's see, how do we do that? Here, coal seams are often close to the surface rather than deep underground. Now, this type of mining is suitable for those areas where the coal seams are not very deep inside. So if it is relatively closer to the surface, there we can follow this surface mining. Because in this case, it is faster, safer and more economical to dig the coal out from the top. So you remain on the surface, you remain on the top, you just dig the ground and try to bring the coal out to the surface. So that was absolutely, it is safer because the miners here, nobody goes underground. So they are all on the surface. So at least they are not that much exposed to coal dust, or they are not that much getting suffocated because they are present on the surface. Again, the second thing is it is more economical because in the previous case of underground mining, the entire tunnel had to be dug, the rooms have to be created in the coal mine. So all those things also involve cost. So all those costs are also saved. So that way also it is more economical. It is also faster because you are also saving time. When you are not digging a tunnel, you are saving time, of course. So that way it is also faster. But the only disadvantage, I would say, that is associated with this is this will not work if the coal seams are present very deep inside the earth, because in that case it is little difficult to bring it to the surface directly being on surface. So after peeling away the layer of soil over the coal, miners start digging out the coal seam using large equipment. So for digging purpose there are equipments available. So all they need to do is, since the coal seams are not very deep inside, so all they need to do is just remove the top layer of soil. Once that is removed, you should be able to find the coal seam, and then you start digging the coal seam using a bigger equipment so that you can bring out the coal to the surface. Third type of mining is mountain top mining. So what is this? So this is the least popular technique. So the most convenient, most easy technique would be the surface mining. However, this mountaintop mining is also used in many places. So here miners blast top of mountain and carry away the coal underneath. Now what happens is, wherever you have a lot of coal deposits, now there might be certain areas where you have a lot of coal below, but on top you have a huge mountain. So basically it has formed a huge mountain at the top. So in that case, what do these miners do? They blast the top of the mountain. So once you are able to blast the top of the mountain, what happens? The mountain gets exposed. You are basically removing the cover or the top cover of the mountain. So once the cover is removed, whatever is present inside gets exposed. And what is present inside in this case? Coal. So all the coal that is present underneath, they get exposed, and that's how the coal is obtained. Now once the mining is done, what do they do? The miners, they cover the base of the mountain with dirt and replant with trees. So they grow more trees in that area. However, since a blast has occurred, so everything has got burnt and all the coal has been extracted, so it actually takes a couple of years, maybe 10, 20, 30 years for that particular area to recover. So this is not a very popular technique because you are basically devastating that area, and then you actually need to wait for a long time for that area to get recovered. So it is not a very advisable technique. However, in areas where they actually have a mountain beneath which a lot of coal is present, they do follow this technique. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on Coal and Petroleum Part 8 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we are going to talk about the next fossil fuel, that is petroleum. Now what comes to your mind when you think of petroleum? How do you relate to petroleum? So the name itself looks like as if it is derived from petrol. So from petrol, what comes to your mind? I think the first thing that comes to your mind maybe is your vehicle. So the vehicles which you drive, whether it is a car, whether it is a bike or anything. So what do they need? What acts as a fuel for these vehicles? Petrol or diesel. So diesel is mostly used for the heavy vehicles. So petrol, diesel are the things which act as fuel for all the vehicles. So from where do we get these petrol, diesel, kerosene? From where do we get them? So we get them all from petroleum. And petroleum is again just like coal, it is also an exhaustible natural resource. And how does it look like? Now it is no more solid, like how coal is, like it has a rock-like appearance, black in color, it is solid. But petroleum on the other hand is a liquid, it is a dark oily liquid. So petroleum also has a very unpleasant smell. In fact, if you ever visit a petrol pump or something, so you'll see that petrol also has a very specific smell. Now please remember that petroleum and petrol are not the same thing. Petrol is just one product which is obtained from petroleum, because petroleum is actually made up of a lot of different components, like how from coal we obtained coal tar, coal gas, coke. Similarly from petroleum we obtain a lot of different products. So one such product is petrol. So it is composed of petrol, diesel, paraffin, wax, petroleum gas, etc. And we will see how exactly do we segregate these various components out of petroleum. So the first question again, how was petroleum formed? Now again, this is also a fossil fuel, so obviously it is also formed in a very similar way as coal was formed, but just that these were formed by decomposition of diatoms deep under the ground. What are diatoms? Diatoms are nothing but living organisms that once lived inside the sea. So these are like tiny living organisms which are found in the sea. Now when these organisms died, what happened was they went towards the bottom of the sea floor. Like normally when these organisms were alive, they were like swimming and they were present on the water, maybe towards the surface or something. But when they died, they tend to become heavier and they went towards the sea floor. So they went towards the bottom. And when that happens, as you can see here, these are the diatoms and they went towards the bottom of the sea. And then over a period of time, a lot of clay, sand, mud, rocks, stones, everything covered them up. So they got completely buried. Now in a very similar way here also again, when there was so much of pressure coming up, so the pressure increased, they went deeper and deeper under high temperature and high pressure. So these dead organisms turned into petroleum. So under high temperature and pressure, it formed oil. So petroleum is nothing but oil, right? It is an oily liquid. So often it is also termed as crude oil. Crude oil is the oil which is in its crude form. That is the oil which is directly extracted from the earth. So that is also called as crude oil. Or you can call it as petroleum as well. Now petroleum in this form, now even if we dig it out from deep inside, but petroleum in this form is not that useful. So in order to make it useful, it is important that we separate the components of the petroleum. So we saw that petrol, diesel, etc. form petroleum. So we need to get all those different components out of petroleum. So we will see how exactly can we separate the various constituents of petroleum. Now, before we learn about that process, we will first have to take that oil out from deep inside the earth. Like how in case of coal, we did coal mining. So in case of petroleum, we will do oil drilling. So in this, there are companies which drill through the earth to find deposits of oil and natural gas. So you see, in the oceans and all, they will set up the entire big apparatus and then they will try to find out whether oil is present there or not. So there are certain locations which are very popular because of their oil deposits. So wherever you have a lot of oil deposits, so the companies will establish their equipments, and that's how they will be fetching the oil out from deep under the ground. Now in case of oil, it is a liquid, right? So it can be fetched directly using equipments. So unlike coal mining where you create tunnels and you send people inside, so all those things are not much required. So here the equipments can do a lot of jobs. So that's how oil is being drilled. So oil is then pumped from below by oil rings and transported through pipelines or ship. So as you can see here, this is how the entire setup would look like. So once the oil is being pumped from below to above, so first the oil is fetched above. Now once the oil is being fetched here, and then using pipelines it is sent to various other locations. And ships are also used for transportation, because normally you will have these kind of oil deposits under the ocean. So ship also acts as good mode of transport. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again.